just had a screening of a movie called Expelled with our special guest, Kevin Miller. And we added this little banner after we found out you were coming, and we didn't even realize that it makes the poster look kind of dirty. We didn't. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the process of this. I know we had a discussion here. So how is it that you initially became involved in the project?
I was one of a group of writers initially consulted on the film by the executive producers on sort of helping to create the concept of the film, and I was eventually hired out of that group to become the head writer on the project.
And Ben Stein obviously involved.
Yeah.
He came in later.
Well, Ben Stein was actually definitely thought of, if not brought in before myself. The producers of the film, the executive producers, were really looking for somebody who could take the complex ideas that the film was going to deal with and really bring them down to a street level. And they felt that Ben Stein was somebody who was really known to be an intellectual, but also known through things like his TV show Win Ben Stein's Money, to be a man of the people and somebody who could do that effectively.
So did you meet him at all?
Oh yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I remember I met Ben first of all at his home in Palm Springs, and you walk up to his door, and I'd been worked on one other film before that, but not with any well-known personality. So you walk up, and what's this going to be like? And Ben Stein opens the door and says, "Hello, boys, come on in." And then you just realize Ben Stein is just like everybody else. He's just a human being.
Nice. All right, so if all goes well, this video is going to make it onto YouTube, where Expelled has basically been raked over the coals by many, many people sitting in front of their computers. I mean, there's critiques of the philosophy involved, there's critiques of the theology involved, and there's critiques of the cinematography, the use of these stock footage. One thing I kept hearing on YouTube was, these people, and they always directed at Ben Stein as if it's all his project. Ben Stein, ignores the scientific method and is okay with lying and stealing copyrighted material. Like, what would you say in response to this?
Well, we did not steal any copyrighted material, number one. In terms of, I'll address your stock footage issue. I find it really interesting that, I guess I'm not aware that we're being bashed so much for the stock footage, but I'll say one thing is that Bill Maher's film Religulous came out this fall. He used a very similar stock footage motif to ours. I didn't hear a peep about that. I find it really interesting. Enjoyed his film a lot. But I find a little bit of maybe a double standard being applied. Who knows? Maybe YouTube's full of critiques of that aspect of his film too. But I mean, definitely Expelled was sued by Yoko Ono, EMI Records, Exevo, and who knows how many other people, supposedly for copyright infringement. Widely publicized. The thing that wasn't publicized was the fact that none of those suits came to anything, and so nobody beat you. No, oh no, all of them just backed off. Once the evidence was on the table, it was clear they weren't going to win. They dropped the suit.
So like things like we talked a little bit about it before. You used a clip from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, well, that was we were never sued for that, as far as I know. That was there is something
like that.
Yeah, there is something called fair use, which allows you to use up to, I think, 15 seconds of an existing work if you're using it for a purpose other than its original intent. So we're using it as commentary on the debate that it's like the Wizard of Oz, pull back the curtain. So that's perfectly acceptable under fair use guidelines.
So out of the people you met, you got to talk to people on both sides of the place. There is this image of the wall that's really used now. I know it's a huge proponent of this, but did you personally see that wall as it was presented in the movie?
Well, I think it's a wall that exists in people's minds, and I think that it's a wall that everybody draws at some point. And I think that's something that wasn't in the film, but as oh my goodness, David Berlinski was standing and talking with Ben Stein, and at the Berlin Wall. Something he said that which wasn't in the final film was that we need walls, and I agree with him. Is that everybody draws a wall, draws a line at which they say, I will no longer, I won't accept that. Like, so something Richard Dawkins likes to say is, look at, you draw the wall at Zeus.
Yeah.
You draw the wall at ISIS, you draw the wall at this. Well, I draw the wall a little bit closer to home. And so I think that the question is, how do things, you know, is it a permeable or an impermeable membrane, and what allows things to pass back and forth across the wall? How do we determine what gets in and what doesn't get in? And I think what the film is trying to argue is that it's wrong to disallow ideas because you have a kind of a preconceived philosophical objection to them. That the only thing that should allow things to pass across the wall should be evidence. So if you have evidence, evidence will travel. Now, of course, the Darwinists will, hopefully not, but probably launch a YouTube rebuttal to that to say, well, yeah, that's the whole point. Intelligent design has no evidence. And how I would respond to that is to say, well, yeah, that's because anytime they apply for research funding or anything like that, any sort of avenue, typical scientific avenue that could lead to producing some evidence, they're ostracized, they're rejected, they're losing their jobs, they're shunned, all the things that we depict happens in the film.
So by definition, could you say this is a conspiracy against intelligent design?
Well, it depends on how you want to define conspiracy. I don't think there's anything organized about it, although on a certain level it definitely is organized. Like somebody like Eugenie Scott, is a conspirator in that she, works actively to orchestrate, kind of a systemic rejection of intelligent design. I would say too, like if you go to Religulous, P.C. Meyer's blog, when Expelled was listed on Amazon.com when the DVD came out. He put out a notice. Okay, guys, it's on Amazon. Go to it. Make sure it's got a 5-star rating right now. Let's bring that sucker down. Next thing you know, within about 2 hours, you've got hundreds of negative reviews against the film. So I don't know. Is that a conspiracy? How would you define a conspiracy? It's a group of people kind of covertly working to subvert something. That sounds like a conspiracy to me. Not very secret conspiracy. But yeah.
Well, the movie itself, Expelled, really showcases sort of a fanatical, almost oppression. Like they talk about so many different people who are just flamed for briefly mentioning this. Now, do you find the right-wing Christian movement to be using this as their own weapon, as saying, like, look, see you evolutionists? Did this help bring to the middle ground, or was it just another era?
Well, I think unfortunately, Expelled is a polarizing film, and that was the way it was conceptualized. My own personal perspective on it is I was hoping that Expelled would be more something that would help expose the moral equivalency of both sides. Because I really see this, I have a friend, a professor friend, who looks at this as really a battle between two fundamentalists who really need each other, because if it's like two people on both sides, it's like two fundamentalist Christians trying to proof text each other. It's all about winning arguments. It's not about finding the truth, because if you find the truth, well, then we can't argue anymore. So it's not really very fun. But I think definitely there probably are people on the religious right who are going to use this film as a weapon to bludgeon science or to bludgeon Darwinists and that sort of thing. And that is not something I would commend, because I don't see this as an anti-scientific film at all. I see it as actually a pro-scientific film.
Do you see it as a Christian film at all? Aeronautic.
Well, there you go.
See, my most popular YouTube video was the blackout video, so we're trying to ride on that.
Well, I noticed
I was out again.
The timing of that, he asked me whether or not this is a Christian film, and I was weighing my answer. So, I don't know.
Now you gotta really think real hard about this.
Yeah. So,
being caught outside.
I would not call this a Christian film. If by Christian you would define a film made for the Christian market, because I definitely can see that this film is sympathetic to a Christian point of view, and that a lot of the people involved in the production of the film come from a Christian faith background. But this is a film that I think is relevant to anybody who has a theistic bent. I think it's relevant to anybody, actually. And but yeah, I would never say this is something just to be kind of sequestered into the Christian subculture.
All right.
And I hope and pray that's not where it is.
Just to really kind of quickly finish this off, we had a question and answer period afterwards, and there was a lot of really interesting things. How has doing this film affected your own personal beliefs? And like, because you got to meet these guys who are very good at arguing their point on both sides.
Yeah.
So you more than most got the opportunity to hear everything and weigh it out. What are some interesting things that you learned, and how have they affected your own personal belief?
Yeah, well, and it was more than just, you know, meeting and interviewing these people. It was also reading dozens of books and articles and, you know, the blogs every day and all that sort of thing. So I come at it, I was raised in a mainline Protestant church until I was in my teens, and then we moved into more of an evangelical church where I, you know, then continued in that area, or that realm of the church, for the next several years. And I probably still look at the world through those eyes, although what this film did to me is, it was about a 2-year process, and for me it shook me to the core in terms of what I believed and how I conceptualized the universe, how I conceptualized religion, how I conceptualized science and God. So it had me questioning everything. I mean, it's pretty difficult to not question everything when you're subjecting yourself to, you know, all these you know, great minds who are questioning everything you believe. And so what it did, though, is it really got rid of everything that I think is false. And I have to say, and this may surprise somebody like P.Z. Myers or Richard Dawkins or a number of these other people to hear this, is that I really do think that a lot of their critiques of religion are valid, and that, because I think that the thing, though, I notice, even about somebody like Bill Maher, when he makes a film like Religulous, is he's not criticizing what's good about religion. They're criticizing the weakest aspect of religion. And that's why if you look at something like Dawkins' book, God's Illusion,
Have you read that?
yeah, oh yeah. And what he's been criticized for is he didn't take the strongest argument for God and then respond. He took the weakest argument and responded. And so, I mean, it's hard really to take that seriously, because he's not taking religion seriously. So how can you really take that seriously? And so, but getting back to your question, is that for me, it's been a very challenging process, but one that I think has brought me a lot more clarity and kind of got rid of any sort of false foundations, philosophical foundations. Not all of them, of course. I'm sure I'm standing on a whole bunch of them right now. But anyway, I identify some of them and got rid of them. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming out tonight. It was a pleasure. One last chance. All the people on YouTube who are making reviews about this movie, if you could just speak to them real quick, what would you have to say to them?
I think, you know, first of all, I love YouTube in the sense that it brings everybody together and it allows us to share what we think and what we feel. And you know, I guess I challenge anybody out there to try and approach Expelled, to try and approach intelligent design, to try and approach this film with an open mind, because honestly, that was my intent. That's always been my intent. I am not morally opposed to Darwinism. I'm not morally opposed to evolution. I just, at this point, from my understanding, which I've been told is quite meager, just find it philosophically indefensible. And now scientifically is another issue. And I mean, I'm still working through it. I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying that we can be emotional about this debate, but let's not let the emotion, you know, kind of undercut our ability to reason and have fun. I think people need a sense of humor. I think you need to all go watch Beware the Believers, because and you can find that on YouTube. And just chill. Yeah.
So Expelled, Marker, is available now on DVD everywhere.
Everywhere.
And where can people find your blog?
You can find my blog at kevinmillerxi.com.
There'll be
There'll
be a link to that.
Feel free to leave a comment.
You're totally gonna get flamed for this. You know that, right?
Nothing can compare to the flaming I've been through already.